What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the first episode of Buzz City Breakdown. I'm Owen Watterson. I write for Schuyler Hornets On SI, as well as some other things. This is the very first episode with our staff here at Schuyler Hornets On SI. I have another Owen with me on the other side of the screen right now. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to try and keep it kind of brief. This will be something we do every single week with a rotating bit of our staff with Matt Alquiza, Callihan, Evan Campos, and some others, as well as us two. Owen, how are you, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great today. I'm a little sick, but, pushing through. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. We got some breaking news earlier today that I'm super excited to talk about. That's probably going to be the focus of what we're doing here today. As everybody is well aware, if you're watching this, the Charlotte Hornets traded for Coby White at the trade deadline on February 5th for Collin Sexton, as well as originally 3 draft picks. It was amended to be 2 after the Hornets found there was I guess you would say, a larger extent to his calf strain injury than they initially anticipated after they got him in their own medical facility. But here we are. What is it, 3 games after All-Star break now? The Hornets are 1-3 since the All-Star break. Just got their first win last night, right, against the Wizards. And here we are with Coby White, their guy, going to be the backup point guard, probably long-term 6-man to LaMelo Ball. Are you excited to see Coby White play for the first time tomorrow?
I have waited for this Coby White debut for a couple weeks at this point. Twitter was not really nice to me after the trade deadline. I had my opinions on Collin Sexton. They were not really well received. The best I could compare it to is when the Celtics traded Marcus Smart in 23, and I was very like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's going to happen to the Celtics. It was not well received at that time either. I'll tell you, I think Coby White is significantly better than Collin Sexton, and I think the offense is going to be much better when he's on the court than it was when Collin Sexton was on the court.
I know that you put out some stats that I can't remember off the top of my head specifically, but you put out some good stats in terms of they're very similar archetype of player. And in our write-up over on the breaking news over at Charlotte Hornets On SI that I put out, I hinted at this just a little bit, but they are very similar players. But I think a lot of that has to do with Chicago's, how would you say it, poor playing style this year, to put it lightly. And I think the volume that Charles Lee anticipates Coby White to have is going to be that, in turn minutes-wise, that of a starter. And I think once we start getting into those high-volume minutes as Coby White ramps up and gets 100% healthy, I think that's where we're going to start seeing the dividends of what you're talking about, the difference with Collin Sexton when LaMelo Ball walks off the floor and everything looks awful and stagnant and everybody's ball watching. Collin Sexton had the tendency to get tunnel vision in those moments, and hopefully Coby White's going to be the guy that can, as they said at Moneyball, recreate LaMelo Ball in the aggregate a little bit better.
I think the NBA now, it's Collin Sexton's a guy, he's going to come in, he's going to give you 15, 16 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. I think the NBA has really moved away from looking at points, rebounds, and assists, and has really gone to like, what is your net rating? What are you like? How are you impacting the game? And Sexton versus Coby White really is the game of net rating and offensive rating. They have very similar stats, but when you really break it down, like I said, Sexton here, his net rating was negative 5.8. His offensive rating was a negative 5.6. In Coby White's time with the Bulls, he was a plus 6.3 for his offensive rating, and his net rating was a plus 5.2. And that's with the Bulls versus the Hornets. Like, you're looking at 2 squads that one is tanking and one is making a playoff push. Even now, Collin Sexton, his net rating has improved in Chicago, but his offensive rating is still dipped. And I think that was the biggest issue is, okay, sure, maybe he can keep the Hornets like defense afloat, but it's like the offense just was useless when he came out, when LaMelo was out of the ballgame. I think it's still like, I think LaMelo's like net rating for offense or the on-off splits are like plus 10 when he's off. It was just, they never had a guy. They needed a playmaker off the bench. Collin Sexton has never been a playmaker. Sion James is not really a playmaker. Trey Mann is either an ISO or a turnover at this point. And KJ Simpson is gone. So I think they just needed a guy who can come in and just play make a little bit. And I think Coby White can do that, a little bit of that, and he could score. And I think that's all you really need out of your backup guard at this point.
I think this is also the first time for anybody else unfamiliar. If you're a fan that's checking into this team for the first time in a long time, I mean, in terms of the history that I can remember, this may truly be the first time they've had a real backup point guard on a good team. I mean, you could consider Dennis Smith Jr. in this argument if you wanted to, but that team he was on that year, the volume he got due to the injuries, it's hard. You have to nitpick it based on that situation of that year. I think of Jeremy Lin, that 2015-2016 team. They made that trade for Courtney Lee at the deadline, and Jeremy Lin, it really kind of opened him up off the bench a little bit. And I'm hoping to kind of see the same thing with Coby White, as well as Grant Williams has been playing right now with Josh Green. This is the best basketball off the bench I think Josh Green right now has played for the Charlotte Hornets since he's been here. And when you have a guy like Coby White, who is a bit more notorious for being pass first, and I think Charles Lee's offense is going to lend him to that kind of playing style anyways. And in the same way, Courtney and Jeremy helped those guys in 2015, 2016 off the bench be better players, like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who needed a playmaker to make him better. Colin Sexton is going to make Grant Williams and the other guys around him off the bench, I think, just that extra notch better that they're going to need when the playoffs comes around, or the play-in.
Yeah, like I just picked out the Grant Williams, Josh Green part with that. I tweeted it last night after the game. Grant Williams is 10-5 with the Hornets this season. Josh Green is 19-14. Josh Green also quietly is an Iron Man. He played 68 games last season until his shoulder ended up giving out, and then he missed the start of the season with the shoulder injury. He's played every single game since returning from the shoulder injury this season. The Hornets offense is 3 points better when he's on the court versus off, and their net rating in total is a plus 9.8 with him. Similar with Grant Williams. While the offense dips, Grant Williams' defense has been amazing. And I remember right before the All-Star break, we were in the presser with Khan, and he was just talking about how great the defense was and how important that's been to the turnaround. Grant Williams, since he's come back, the defense is a negative 10.2 with him on the court. They're getting stops when he's on, and I think he's been quietly a huge part of this turnaround, because even when you look at last season, I believe the team was 7-10 or something or 6-10 or something with Grant in the lineup. They won 13 more games after that. He's just a winning player. He's consistently besides Dallas, which was half a season. I don't know if we count that. Everywhere he's gone really and played, he has won. He has been able to contribute to winning. And I think that's just who he is. And I think he's a player. Him and Josh Green are both really great players off the bench. And I've said it a bunch of times, Josh Green's extension eligible this offseason. The contract he has right now, I think it's $442 or something along those lines. He's getting 15-16 million a year. Yeah, he's averaging 5 points per game, but he's shooting 45% from three. I think he's a guy that you got to look to maybe give a similar contract to extend. And yeah, it's just the bench is going to be so great. You have Coby, obviously. Now you have Grant, Josh Green. Sion James' offense is a little bit tipsy. His advanced metrics are not great, but Ryan Kalkbrenner is a fantastic backup center, which has shocked me. I thought they were going to push him out to be the starter, and that was it. And then I'm very glad he's found that role there. But even Liam McNeely hasn't made an appearance yet, and even he's been killing it in Greensboro. Tijon Salon eventually should contribute.
It's a key phrase with Tijon, isn't it?
Eventually. And then I think the Trey Mann experience is over. I think the Trey Mann, you can add on to that. I think the Trey Mann experience is over. I don't think there's much left there.
I do too, and I've been one of his biggest supporters. I got to give Trey Mann a lot of credit for the way he's, at the least since the All-Star break, tried to come out with some defensive tenacity. It hasn't always served him the best, but he really is a sore thumb. When I was talking about in terms of Colin Sexton having that tunnel vision when he's on the court, Trey's just as bad, different way, more of an ISO player than just going straight downhill and getting to the cup like Sexton did. It's interesting you talk about extensions, because I think we should talk about that for a second in regards to Coby. Jeff Peterson has hinted at it a couple times. I think you were in a couple of those pressers when Alquiza asked the post-trade deadline about what the plans were for extending him. It seems like that was already on their minds. You don't make a deal for an expiring guy like this they speak so highly of unless you have those plans to sign him. What do you think a deal looks like for Coby White in terms of an extension this summer for Charlotte, you think?
I think you also have to take in mind the fact that the Hornets aren't a buying team. So if they're making a trade for a guy, for example, if Oklahoma City came out and traded for Coby White, that's a move. Like you're like they're not probably going to re-sign him. So we're making a push to win the title. I would say like Coby White. There's actually Steph No, I think his name is, built this contracts tool, and it's been fantastic. But for Coby White, they project his extension to be around 21 million a year, which for the today's NBA, for a point guard who can come in, I think he's averaging 15, 16 this year. I'll check on that. I think that he's averaging 18 this year. I think realistically, like a point guard who can average 18 on good efficiency, who's going to be a sixth man in today's day and age, I think 21 million is a bargain. I think that is. I mean, Emmanuel Quickley is getting $35 million a year, which is an outrageous contract. But that's why I try to tell people, like when I tweeted the Josh Green thing, someone was like, Austin Reeves isn't even getting this money, dude. Austin Reeves is about to get $45 million a year. Like
Easily.
NBA money is through the roof at this point. Like Trey Mann got a 3-year, $21 million deal after not playing last season. I think that realistically, we're looking at a lot of money for Coby White.
Yeah, and I think that itself goes back into what you said about Trey Mann. The Trey Mann experience is probably done. I think everybody has talked about Jeff Peterson and the swings that the Hornets may or may not take, when they may come, will they come. I think in terms of a mini swing, I do think Trey Mann is going to be a part of the facilitation of one of those this summer, whether it's for another center. What's really stuck with me, I've talked about this with one of my friends. I've ran some of the cap on some of this for Daniel Gafford. The center market's slim right now. I really love what Indiana
Not
did.
good.
I love what Indiana did to get Zubats. The price was high, to be fair, but I think Gafford, we saw with the Tyus Jones deal in terms of Jeff Peterson's ability to have a relationship with that front office and create the trade exception. I think that speaks silently, but I think it speaks silently in NBA circles in terms of when you make those deals that end up being beneficial to you in terms of whether it's money or like Orlando getting off the out of the first apron by trading Tyus Jones to Charlotte in the first place before they rerouted him back to Dallas. I think that's one of those indications that guys have a pretty good relationship with each other in terms of the front office. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something go down for Gafford. Now, I say that because you're talking about 21 million for Coby. Yeah, that you want to talk about a bargain. I mean, Miles is on, what is he, 27 million a year right
I
now?
believe so.
And in terms of efficiency, like what Coby can provide that this team has missed I mean, it's not just this year. It's been a long time since, Kemba Walker and moving into LaMelo Ball, this backup point guard issue. I mean, I'd take that in a heartbeat. Even if it's probably going to be an increasing value. I'd imagine probably a 21.5 million and then increase to maybe 23.5, and maybe the last year of a 3-year extension it's 25 and some change. I think something like that is very realistic. Ultimately, we're talking about NBA money. Moussa Diabate is what makes me start looking at guys like Gafford, because when you have a starter in your core that is on a minimum NBA deal, man, I can't express to people how much that has to accelerate a front office's, okay, we have an opportunity right here. Not just that, but a real window with the kind of salary they have on the books right now. And if they can get Coby White for that kind of price, I think that only kind of furthers people like us thinking about, hey, it's about time.
I think this offseason is huge because, like I said, Josh Green's to be eligible. Coby White's going to be eligible, or Coby White's going to be a free agent. Brandon Miller is going to be extension eligible, I believe, this offseason. And then Moussa will be extension eligible as well. So you need to look at, I mean, Moussa's probably going to command, I believe the most they can give him is 17 million a year. I think he is probably has earned well above that, but I think
Right.
he seems loyal. I would assume he takes that deal. Brandon Miller, I don't know what a Brandon Miller contract looks like right now, to be honest. There are times where he looks like, hey, you should do the like. I remember I saw a tweet because after Jovic got his extension, someone was like, all you have to do is be a first round pick, be a wing, and show like some promise, and you'll get $100 million. That's kind of what's happening with Brandon Miller. They're probably going to give him a $100 million contract, and it's just has he shown that he deserves to get paid like $30 million a year? Not really. Like, as much as I think Brandon Miller is going to be an all-star, yes, he has these stretches like he did in January where he's 25 and 5 on 50 40 90 or 50 40 100, and then there's stretches like coming out of the All-Star break where he's got 15 points on 30 shots. So I think Brandon is just such an interesting case, and I think he's really gonna be under a microscope at this front office over the next couple months to determine how much are you gonna get, because he's eligible for like a $265 million contract, and he's not getting that. I'll tell you that.
No,
He's
no,
not
he's
coming
not.
anywhere close to that.
And I've seen way more people than I expected. Like you were saying, just saying, give him the max, give him the max. I saw Richie Randall put out from BuzzBeat, put out the details in terms of what that scale of an extension would look like from 45, 46, 47 by the end of it per year. And it's, I mean, I wrote about this a while back in terms of, was Moussa Diabate more valuable than Brandon Miller? And the whole crux of my argument there wasn't that Diabate was like purely more talented by Brandon Miller, but I think the archetype that Miller is, the high level scoring guard that can play a little bit of defense, that's got long arms. I mean, it's you see it every year. You see it looked at by every single team. You see them paid all the time. And in terms of frequency of players like Brandon Miller, I might get a lot of flack for this, but it's a lot easier to find that kind of piece than it is to find, say, a 6'8" point guard like LaMelo Ball who can, score 12 points in 99 seconds. And I love Miller, but to
His
man that
archetype
kind of
is
money, to man that kind of money, I would have already need to see it in an All-Star, but by his third year, you know what I mean?
it's like his archetype is just becoming a very regular. It's the fact of like LeBron, KD, people growing up watching LeBron, KD, Paul George. Everybody wants to be the 6'8" wing that's that's a 3-and-D guy that can get you like 25 points with 5 threes. That's just what everybody is right now. Like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are that. Ace Bailey coming out was that. Like it's a very common archetype at this point, and I do think Brandon Miller has been realistically, he has been a top 4 player on the team this year. I think Moose has been their second best player this year. I think Moose has been unbelievable. But yeah, it's just, I wonder if the front office really would be willing to give him, that's $100 million is not a small amount of money.
No, it's not. And I'll kind of end here and give us something maybe to talk about next time, because this is another center of some of the things I've been doing in my free time on the Spotrac trade machine. But I think it's interesting to think about the idea of what a sign and trade for Brandon Miller this offseason would look like in terms of signing an extension for a team that may be willing to pay him more than the Hornets are. And maybe it gets the Hornets back something else in the aggregate. I'm not really sure. I've thought about that fairly often. Maybe for somebody like, goodness, I don't know.
He's just
New York. Go ahead.
It's just like I'm looking at this number, for example. He's such a LaMelo, like at this point. So when Melo and Brandon are on the court together, their net rating is plus 12.6. Like they're phenomenal together. When it's just Miller on the court, the offense drops by 9.8 points per 100, and they drop like a 5-point net rating. They get significantly. He gets worse when LaMelo's not on the court, and I believe that's also reflected in his. You can. Data Baller is awesome. This is my favorite.
Great, isn't it?
Data Baller is awesome. Whatever. There's some way I can look at. I can't find it right now, but there's usual. You can see. Oh, I got it. So LaMelo and Brandon. When Brandon is playing with LaMelo, or without LaMelo, his points, rebound, like it says, his points, rebounds, and assists all go up. This is adding on to my argument earlier of points, rebounds, and assists are kind of, people aren't really looking at them anymore. Luka Doncic is the king of points, rebounds, and assists, and people are kind of looking at him now and being like, what do you do on defense? Like you're kind of useless on that side of the ball. So yes, Brandon Miller's stats sort of get better, but it's like the team is getting worse when he's in charge and not LaMelo. So I think they'll everything
I do
will.
have something to add on to that though, actually, because we saw the fruits of exactly what you're saying in that last game versus Washington. Was the first time that I noticed Charles Lee decided to flip flop how he was subbing Con Knipple and Brandon Miller. It looked like in the sense that it was no longer Con that was running with LaMelo in reserves; it was Brandon running with LaMelo and some of the other starters, and then Con was the one out there with Sion and Josh Green and PJ Hall. And I think there was a gap in the second quarter. The Hornets only scored 23 points in that second quarter against Washington, but a big portion it didn't get out of hand, even though Koulibaly wasn't in that game, was because Khan was there with them. They were so focused on making sure he wasn't running off screens and getting wide open that even though he wasn't hitting them until later in the game, it really made a big difference, I think, in keeping them to where when LaMelo went off again, they ran away with that game. So I think the coaching staff notices that trend just as much as you're talking about. You're not crazy for it at all.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the first great episode. I really hope you guys, first off, subscribe. I hate to be the subscribe guy, but I got to ask you, make sure you like, come back and check us out. We're going to do this once weekly. Like I said, we'll rotate a little bit of our staff. Matt Alquiza, Owen will be back. Tune in, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching Buzz City Breakdown. We'll see you next time.